Weaver. I'm an associate professor of music at Johnson University. I've been here for 20 years. I teach a number of music courses, but I do direct a tour choir. Got started with music when I was probably 4 years old.
What would you say to someone who, if you were trying to like sell them on learning how to read music, like I guess like what is another layer that being able to read music would add?
I think people assume, maybe with music teachers, because most of us are musically literate, that we look down on people who can't read music, and certainly I don't subscribe that way. If we look at music up until the Middle Ages was an oral tradition, and even in the Middle Ages when notation was invented, it still continued to be an oral tradition as music was passed down. So there was no music per se written, at least from what we can see from history. So there's an oral tradition that has existed for a long time, and it's continued even with the creation of music notation and so forth. Can people be musicians and not read music? Sure. It's a different kind of musicianship, but it's equitable. For me, having a great ear, I appreciate people who have good ears. If I can read music, I can look at a score and know what it sounds like, even if I've never heard it before. Because I can look at the page and I know what it sounds like. I don't have to go to an instrument or I have to go to a recording. I've got it right there. And then in some ways there's an advantage to that, because then I can take that written music and I can create it, and I can, if I'm working with an ensemble, I can teach that to an ensemble with the ideas maybe that I have from my own musicianship and bring my input into that. Or, I can use a recording, or I can play an instrument and so forth and come up with a different idea of what that piece is supposed to sound like. But certainly having the advantage of looking at a piece and knowing what it sounds like without having somebody else have to play it for me or have to use a recording in order to know what it sounds like, that is an advantage. Also, the general knowledge just gives you something else to work with in terms of understanding music at a deeper level.
What would you say to silence being music, and how does that lend itself to like a piece of music? What is its role?
Whether you are a composer or an arranger or something, when you put music together, if you constantly fill it with musical elements, after a while the ear begins to tire.
Because a lot of this is focused on listening, something that you would maybe want people to be aware of when they listen.
People today tend to hear music, but they don't listen to music. Oftentimes they'll use music for other purposes. Music is for background filler, or it's to keep them occupied. Music traditionally was used for other means, up until the 20th century.
I've heard that you have perfect pitch. Is that true?
That's true. Perfect pitch is when I hear a tone, hear a note, and I can tell you what it is without looking at an instrument. If somebody's playing an instrument, or if somebody sings a tone for me, then I can go ahead and tell them what that tone is, and they can check me. In fact, we could probably do a demonstration right now if you'd like.
La.
Is that the tone you sang? Okay, that sounds like an E flat, or pretty close to an E flat. La. Okay, so we'll check on the piano for those people who know play piano. Okay, we got an E flat about right here. Wow. So that's how perfect pitch works. That's a God-given gift.